everyone has access to you, no one truly values you. Let that idea settle. The more present you are, the more you fade into the background. Here's the harsh reality. People rarely appreciate what's always within reach. They cherish what they must work for. Scarcity creates worth. This isn't just theory. It's a foundational rule of human psychology. It applies across every aspect of life: money, time, energy, even people. The moment something becomes overly available, its perceived significance begins to fade. Humans are wired to crave what they can't easily obtain. We desire what's elusive. The second you make yourself too accessible, too ever-present, too dependable, you stop being someone they strive for, you become someone they assume will always be there. They stop appreciating your efforts. They stop noticing your presence. You transform from a priority into a backup option. When people know you'll always be around regardless of how they treat you, your importance in their eyes dwindles to nothing. Scarcity signals value. When your time isn't easily granted, when your presence isn't a given, people respond differently. They start thinking before they speak. They treat your moments with care. Why? Because they realize your attention isn't free. They understand you're not available on demand. This fundamental shift changes how others engage with you. You're no longer just a kind face. They start seeking your approval. They measure their words. They work to earn your recognition. This isn't just about ego, it's about perception. The rare's revered. Think about luxury items, diamonds, limited edition cars, private islands. Are they necessarily the best at everything? No, but they're rare. That rarity alone elevates their value. The same logic applies to you. If you're constantly replying instantly, showing up uninvited, always stepping in to help, especially when it goes unacknowledged, you risk becoming invisible. You shift from being admired to being taken for granted. They no longer see you as a person of value, but as someone who's always available, someone they don't have to make effort for. Scarcity makes people wait, and in that wait, anticipation grows. The more they have to earn your presence, the more they respect it. They stop wasting your time because they know it's not guaranteed. They don't interrupt you so freely. They don't assume your agreement. You don't need to be cold, you don't need to be distant, but you do need to be intentional. Not everyone should have access to you. Not everyone has earned the right to your time or energy. When you live with this awareness, you behave differently. You talk less, but what you say carries more impact. You show up less, but your presence lingers. Rarity makes people pay attention. Scarcity is not about absence, it's about selectivity. It's about choosing quality over quantity in how you show up in people's lives. Society often glorifies friendliness, encouraging kindness, empathy, connection. But there's a thin line between being kind and being soft, between being approachable and being desperate. When you're too nice, always smiling, always agreeing, always accommodating, you project a lack of confidence. People notice, even if subconsciously. And once you're labeled as someone who can be pushed around, that's how you'll be treated. Human behavior doesn't gravitate toward what's passive, it gravitates toward presence, toward influence, toward quiet authority. Over-friendliness often reads as insecurity in disguise. It gives off the impression that you need approval to feel secure. And once people sense you're chasing their validation, they instinctively withhold it. They place themselves above you. You silently tell them, I'll mold myself to fit what you want. And that's when they stop respecting you. That's the pivot point. You lose control. The dynamic shifts. You're no longer an equal, you're a follower, a people pleaser, someone looking for permission to exist. The truth is, the world respects those with standards, those who don't flinch when it's time to say no, those who are rooted in their own worth. If you're constantly trying to be liked, saying yes when you mean no, laughing at things you don't find funny, agreeing just to avoid friction, you're not being pleasant. You're erasing yourself for a chance to belong. And it rarely pays off. The more you give, the more people expect. The moment you train people to believe you'll always go the extra mile with no complaint, they'll hold you to it. You'll become the one who always compromises, the one who's always understanding, even when being disrespected. And when you finally stand up for yourself, they'll accuse you of changing. But you didn't change. You just stopped tolerating the disrespect they became comfortable with. Being nice isn't the problem. Being nice without boundaries is. Real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't seek applause. It sets limits and enforces them calmly. It knows when to speak and when to remain silent, and it never begs for acknowledgement. When you move from a place of inner strength, people notice without you needing to force it. Your presence does the talking. It commands attention without screaming for it. The mistake many people make is thinking that being liked is the same as being respected. It's not. Being liked is fleeting. It's surface level. Being respected lasts. It has depth. It's built through consistency, boundaries, and self-respect. And here's something most people won't tell you. If everyone likes you, you're probably not being fully honest. You're probably not standing firm in your truth, because authenticity will always upset someone. The goal isn't to avoid being disliked, it's to avoid being disrespected. Respect isn't given for free. It's earned through resistance, through saying no when it's inconvenient, through protecting your energy, through being unshakable in your standards. People will test you, not always maliciously, often instinctively. They'll push to see what they can get away with. If you don't push back, they'll assume your limits don't exist. It starts small, canceling plans, ignoring messages, making jokes at your expense. But over time, the pattern grows. And before you realize it, you're doing emotional labor for people who wouldn't even text back if you needed help. Worse, you start pretending it's okay. You rationalize the disrespect to maintain peace. But that's not peace, it's passive surrender. People don't respect what they can walk all over. They respect what makes them pause. They respect a challenge, a presence that stands firm. And when they bump into your boundaries, when they realize there's a line they can't cross, that's when the real respect begins. Not always immediately, some may react with offense, but deep down they recognize power when they see it. Being agreeable is not inherently wrong, but it must stem from strength, not neediness, from clarity, not fear. If you're always bending to make others comfortable, you'll lose your shape entirely. And people will notice. They'll take you less seriously. You'll be the one who always compromises, always adapts, always yields. That doesn't make you strong, it makes you invisible. People respect those who are decisive, those who have direction, those who hold themselves to a standard and don't abandon it for temporary acceptance. Because when you do, when you drop your boundaries just to avoid confrontation or keep someone around, you invite more of the behavior you were trying to avoid. You tell the world, I'll tolerate anything just to be liked, and the world responds accordingly. We live in a world of constant testing. Professionally, socially, emotionally, people constantly assess how far they can push. If you let one thing slide, they'll try two. If you don't address disrespect, it repeats. Not because they're bad people, but because human nature follows the path of least resistance. They'll follow your example, and if your example is one of weakness, they'll exploit it, whether they realize it or not. That's why your standards can't be reactive, they must be proactive. They must be based on self-awareness, not the fear of losing connection. People can sense desperation from a mile away, and nothing attracts more disrespect than someone terrified of being alone, terrified of disappointing, terrified of drawing a line. If you don't draw the line, they will, and their version of the line will not benefit you, it will protect them at your expense. Every relationship, every interaction is shaped by what you allow, by what you accept. You are setting the tone with every boundary you keep or break. You are teaching people how to treat you, not by what you say, but by what you tolerate. And if you allow yourself to be disrespected to avoid being alone, you'll never feel truly valued, even when surrounded by people. Self-respect isn't loud, but it's undeniable. It doesn't need to be defended. It shows up in silence, in refusal, in detachment, in knowing when to walk away, in knowing your worth doesn't drop just because someone else fails to see it. The more selective you are, the more people respect your presence. They remember you. They adjust around you. Because scarcity demands recognition. The less of you there is to go around, the more people appreciate what they get. That's how true value is created, not through overexposure, not through constant accommodation, but through knowing your worth and living by it. Respect is not something you're automatically owed, it's something you earn. And you earn it by how you present yourself, by the standards you maintain and the boundaries you uphold. If you go through life expecting people to treat you well just because you're nice or simply because you exist, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. People treat you based on how you treat yourself. If you act like you don't matter, if you let others speak down to you, waste your time, or take advantage of you without consequence, that behavior becomes the default. The issue is, many people mistake being liked for being respected. They assume if they're nice enough, agreeable enough, or giving enough, others will recognize their value, but appreciation without respect is hollow. You'll hear polite thank yous, but your voice will go unheard. People will accept your help, but ignore your needs. You'll become useful, not truly valued, because you train them to believe your worth comes from what you offer, not from who you are. And people won't unlearn that unless you make them. Every interaction sends a message. Each time you say yes when you mean no, stay quiet when someone steps over a line, or accept being ignored, you're delivering a silent message. This is acceptable. You're not being respectful. You're giving permission. And people will always take as much ground as you give them, not because they're malicious, but because that's how human nature works. We all look for the path of least resistance. And if you provide none, you're telling them there are no limits. Respect is created through limits. Through those moments when you say, that doesn't work for me. Through the times you remove yourself from situations or people who disregard your worth. Through the discipline to defend your peace, your energy, and your time, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's difficult. That's when people start to notice. Not when you overextend yourself hoping to be acknowledged, but when you stand your ground and show that your dignity is non-negotiable. You can't pretend to have self-respect. People pick up on whether you truly value yourself or not. If your actions don't align with your words, no one will take you seriously. If you claim you won't tolerate something but let it pass anyway, your credibility vanishes. But when your standards are firm and your boundaries consistent, people begin to change their behavior. They might test you at first, but once they realize you're not moving, they adapt. Because respect isn't earned by being accommodating. It's earned by being unwavering in who you are. People will treat you the way you let them. And if you present yourself like a doormat, it shouldn't surprise you when they wipe their feet on you. You're not simply asking for respect, you're setting the cost of it. Energy is a form of currency. It's among your most valuable assets, more precious than wealth or status, because once it's spent, it's gone. Each morning you wake with a limited supply of mental clarity, emotional resilience, physical vitality, and attention. What you invest that energy into shapes the quality of your life. Yet most people scatter their energy as if it's endless, as if it holds no real value. They give it away to people who haven't earned it, to conflicts that aren't theirs, to distractions that add nothing. Every time you engage in meaningless drama, respond to someone who drains you, or offer time to someone who doesn't reciprocate, you're making a poor investment. It might not hurt immediately, but over time, the cost adds up. Your calm, your progress, your focus all quietly deteriorate. Even worse, the more easily you give away your energy, the less people respect it. If you're always available, always saying yes, always reacting to everything, people begin to believe your time and focus must not be that important. Think about how you regard someone who is careful with their attention versus someone who is constantly talking, constantly reaching out, constantly available. The one who moves with purpose, who grants access selectively, commands more respect. Why? Because they treat their energy as sacred. That makes others treat it the same way. The person always chasing, always explaining, always giving too much isn't seen as strong. They're seen as desperate. Not necessarily because they are, but because that's the message their behavior communicates. The truth is, not everyone deserves your energy. Not every issue deserves your involvement. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't have to clarify your side to those determined to misunderstand you. You don't need to run after those unwilling to meet you halfway. That's wasted energy. And once it's gone, it doesn't return the same way. You end up exhausted, discouraged, wondering why you're stagnant while others seem to be progressing. Being intentional with your energy requires the strength to walk away. It means refusing to respond to every jab, every criticism, every low-vibe interaction. It means you understand the power of silence, that saying nothing can often say everything. That saying no is not offensive, it's survival. You don't owe your presence or your focus to anyone who demands it. You owe it to yourself to spend it where it matters. Energy is a resource, and how you use it defines what you become. Waste it on those who drain you, and you become depleted. Invest it in what strengthens you, and you become unstoppable. The decision is yours every single day. Mystery holds power. It creates intrigue, not because you're loud, not because you constantly show up, but because you hold something back. In a world obsessed with oversharing, where everyone puts everything on display, the person who practices restraint becomes captivating. People are naturally drawn to mystery. They're curious by default. They want to figure out what they don't fully understand. But if you reveal too much, too quickly, you take away that curiosity, the pursuit ends, the attention fades. What's easily accessed loses its appeal. People are drawn to the unknown. They respect what they can't immediately grasp. That's why the person who speaks less, who doesn't explain every move, often holds more presence than the one always seeking the spotlight. There's power in subtlety, in making others wonder what you're thinking, what your next step might be. When you give people nothing to cling to, they create their own narrative, and that creates gravity. You become more than just another person in the crowd. They begin projecting value onto you before you even speak. Mystery forces people to stay alert. When you don't constantly show up, they look for you. When you finally speak, they pay close attention. Not because you're louder, but because you're less frequent. Not because you overshare, but because you're measured. When everything about you is already visible, no one looks closer. But when you keep something in reserve, people lean in. They become more curious, more attentive. Controlling your presence means controlling how others perceive you. The more you appear to have control over your thoughts, your emotions, and your self-demeanor, the more people take you seriously. They sense composure. They sense you're not trying to impress. That's when they start trying to impress you. People chase what's scarce. They admire what doesn't beg for admiration. When you're constantly working to prove your worth, others assume you must not have much to begin with. But if you move with quiet assurance, they believe you know something they don't. Mystery also gives you strategic advantage. When people don't know your full story, your abilities, or your next move, they can't anticipate or manipulate you. You become unpredictable, an unknown factor. That unpredictability gives you power. Influence isn't always in what you say, it's often in what you don't say. It's in the moments you hold back, the moments you let others speculate while you stay grounded in the truth you know. Being mysterious doesn't mean being deceptive. It means being intentional, choosing what parts of yourself to reveal, to whom and when. Not everyone deserves full access. Not everyone should get front row seats to your process or your evolution. Let them earn that access. Let them wonder. That's how you distinguish yourself from the noise. That's how you move from being background noise to commanding attention without even trying. Here's the reality. If you want real respect, you must stop offering yourself like a promotional giveaway. Stop chasing validation. Stop trying to win everyone over. Your value doesn't lie in your availability. It lies in your discernment. You don't have to explain everything. You don't need to smile at everyone. You don't need to be constantly likable. People respect those who set boundaries. They respect those who protect their energy. They respect what they can't easily possess. So carry yourself like someone who understands their worth. Guard your time, guard your focus, be rare, be deliberate, and let your silence carry more weight than desperation ever could. Because when you stop being overly available, overly agreeable, overly eager, that's the exact moment they start noticing. That's when they begin to respect you. That's when they begin to chase you.